I'm so happy to have Christina Martini here with me today.
Mhm.
And Christina, you're joining me from the beautiful island of Maui, Hawaii. Am I correct?
Yes, aloha.
Aloha. Well, thank you.
Aloha, as we say.
It's a beautiful word, isn't it?
Mhm.
Kind of sums it all up. I'm so excited.
Yes, it is.
I'm excited to have this
Yes.
opportunity. Can you explain to me what aloha means to you?
Oh, wow. I love it. I actually interpret this word into our practice every day when I'm teaching somebody how to take our beautiful breath of ujjayi, as aloha means breathing by the water. Ha itself means breath. And then aloha, it's all part of the water energy and life source. And so being in Maui is almost like a blessing and a manifestation of being at the right place to celebrate anything with wellness, well being, health, and so forth. So, aloha is a beautiful way of saying we invite everyone, like our namaste, the honor of the light in me, the love in me, the spirit in me welcomes you with hospitality of unconditional love. So, that's the aloha spirit.
Yes.
So
Nice. How long have
beautiful.
you lived? How long
Mhm.
have you lived there?
Well, I'm natively from Guam, so it's another Pacific island. So a total of 6 years now. We made our home to Maui 6 years ago, moving from San Francisco to there. But I've been going to Maui for over 20 years because all my gurus um, live there, and that's where they share the practice with me and every continuing education annual visits over to their place made it home for me. It's like one day I'm going to move here, and I did.
Nice.
So
Hey,
yeah, beautiful.
can I attempt to list the people that live on Maui that possibly you've practiced and studied with? I'm guessing Nancy Gilgoff
Of course.
and David Swenson
Yes, very much so.
and
Yes.
Nikki Doan.
No, but David Williams
Oh
is
yeah,
there.
nice. David
And
Williams
yeah, the David
was
Williams. And then we have Jack Fisher. I don't know if you're familiar with who Jack Fisher is. He's also one of the senior teachers that was part of the, gosh, we're going way back when Guruji first arrived to Maui, you know.
mm, yep,
And we
yep.
have Tim Miller. Tim Miller occasionally comes over to Maui, as a matter of fact, in a yearly, visit because he used to live there, I believe. And so, and then we have a lot of other. Nikki Doan is there. I have not had the pleasure of. I know of her, but I know that Maui is. We should see each other, but she's on the other side of the island, towards the going towards Hana, and I'm on the North Shore side as well. It's not very far, but I think once we're in our own habitat, we kind of just enjoy that nature.
Yeah,
So,
it is so
yeah,
beautiful there. Do you live in Haiku?
yeah, I do. I live in Haiku. And we
Nice.
can't forget to mention Manju,
Oh
the
yeah,
son of Patavi Jois. And he definitely makes Maui one of his second homes after Europe. So
nice,
he
nice.
loves Europe.
And you've had a chance to
So,
practice
yeah,
with
those
all of
are all
them
my
over the
lineage.
years. Wow.
Well, they are my only teachers. I've never had any other teachers than them. I started right from the heart of their teachings. I
Mm.
was in my early 20s when I met them, still had braces. And fast forward 28 years later, they see me grow up. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, that
yeah,
how
I have had the
so
pleasure of all of that.
wonderful. Were you living on Maui then when you were 20 and started practicing?
I was
Back
I
forward.
was in
Back forward.
Guam and then moved
Yeah.
to Southern California. Yes, and then through the grapevine, you get invited as you become dedicated and devoted to this practice. And I've had the honor of, just being at the right time with the right inspiration to be introduced to the heart of it all. So I used to drive well, when I was in Guam, I would fly to Oahu and Nancy would do her workshops there over with Kathy and Glenn. it's purple yoga, right? And that's where they're at. They were the only ones teaching there. And she
Mm.
would host the workshops. So from Guam to there was like 8 or 10 hours of a flight. Or I would see her in Japan because she loved Japan and she would go there for her workshop. So it's nice. And then, when it was time to relocate to the mainland to get some education, I have a background in nursing, went over to Southern California. There's not very many Ashtanga, but again, I got introduced to Diana Christensen, who was very, very much close to Tim Miller and David Swenson. It's called Pacific Shala Ashtanga in Dana Point. And then from there was a gateway of doors opened.
Yeah.
And David's like, you got to study with my teacher. Then Nancy's like, you got to study with my guru. And then I got introduced to David. And then from David, introduced me to Manju. And they just kept on going. It just
Yeah.
never stopped. So it was
Wonderful.
a great opportunity. It's one thing I cherish the most. So in life,
Well,
you
amazing.
know.
Are
Mhm.
you currently teaching a 6 day a week schedule?
I am. I'm the senior teacher, of course, of our own school. And I do have one teacher assistant and one apprentice. But, I committed and devoted to it. Many times I've been asked to do traveling, teaching, and it's just not been my intention at this time. I just love being home based and
Yeah.
it's like being a nurse, you have this continuity of care. And it's the same thing as how I approach yoga. Yoga is therapeutic and it saves lives, it touches lives, it changes lives. And it's like writing a care plan. And you
Yeah.
have to be present to have the outcome measure successful. So I enjoy our Mysore program. We start at 5:30 in the morning because people have to work and take kids to school. So if we have parents, they have this ability to put themselves to this beautiful balance before they start their day. And then we run a 4-hour Mysore program. So we have an opportunity for a flexible start. So I
Wow.
feel rejuvenated. I've never burned out. I've been
Yeah.
doing it for so long. I don't even know if day off feels right for me when I, you know. So Saturday, I do take advantage of it.
Yeah.
But, come Sunday, we're ready to roll again. So,
I hear you. I do the
when
same.
you love what you do,
Yeah.
it's just so fun. Yeah.
Good point. Great
So
point.
it's passion.
Do you use your
Yeah.
nursing degree
So,
in working in hospitals as well? Are you holding down teaching yoga and working as
well,
a nurse?
no, I was part-time before October of last year, or when the COVID actually. So, I made a decision well, I've always been full-time on the yoga for sure, because my work doesn't start until like noon. I'm a advocate navigator in oncology, so all my patients are cancer patients. And so I think I put in so many years into my works that I'm a specialty nurse, which means I get called upon when there's a lot of disparities and gaps in services that people don't know where to turn to. The physicians will do a referral to me and stuff. So, but now I've learned that yeah, it can take a toll, right? During the pandemic, lots of things have changed. So I'm very selective. I just do private consults now and then direct them to where they need to go. So
Nice.
my hands are pretty much full time with teaching Ayurveda and also Ashtanga yoga. So yes, I
Wonderful.
love it.
Have
Yeah,
you also taken many pilgrimages to India?
I have once. I wish I would return again, but Manju doesn't go to India anymore, unless it's something for family or a need to be basis.
Yeah.
So he's redirected all his teachings over to either Europe or San Diego. So that's where I've been going to follow my teacher. And
Nice.
then Nancy, of course, she's home base here in David. So, so it's changed my course of journeys. I do follow him in Italy or in Europe where he's going to be going in the next few months or so or next year. And then David Williams retired from teaching, so that took Greece and all those other Europe places away too.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, so basically, I have not yet returned to India since, oh my gosh, I'm trying to look back. It had to be early 2000s when I was last there at Mysore, and it was at the old Shala. So. And I
Nice.
had the
Gotcha.
privilege of meeting Saraswati,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Then I've seen Sharat. Sharat's been coming over to San Francisco before I moved, so he was over at Stanford, you know. So
Uh-huh.
I've been seeing him over there when he was doing his trips, his USA tour there. So which is nice. So saved me an airline across the world.
Yeah,
So
exactly right. That's cool.
yeah,
Nice.
yeah. He's in Florida right now, isn't he?
He is
Yeah, he's over at Kino. Yeah,
in Miami.
yeah. So that's
Correct.
awesome.
Correct.
Yeah,
Can
yeah.
you tell
So
me, well, I recently had somebody say to me, Todd, are you going down to Miami to practice? And I'm currently working through some physical challenges that I almost feel like being in large groups might not help
mm,
me facilitate taking good care of myself because I have a tendency to get swept up in the enthusiasm and just kind of go.
become
And
very pitta.
yeah,
Yeah,
so I'm trying to honor that.
yeah.
And but I'm curious, you've had so many years of practice and experience now, 28 years. Have
Yeah.
you ever had a moment like that in your own experience where you've needed to take care of yourself
Well,
a little extra special and
definitely.
can you explain a little bit to me
Yes,
just to give me a little bit of encouragement?
of course. Oh, definitely. Well, first of all, I learned from the old school system where a large environment is all new now. I mean, that's quite extensive, you know, the attendance. And I know that there's a positive in everything. And so, but there's also a mindfulness to all things. And so, one of the things for me is when I did venture off to a large group, like I mentioned, I was attending all the events over at Stanford. It got pretty big. I mean, I have videos of them. You know, it's crazy. There is a tendency to overcompete with yourself because the energy of the room is basically like an elite fitness, right? As we say. And Ashtanga already brings out the strength and the endurance and also the best aspiration in us. And so when we're in a large crowd like that, I have heard many come into some form of injury, whether mild or severe. And then they have had a change of heart. For me, I remember one time having been in that large group. It was an intermediate series, and I'm not going to always redirect who the teacher was and stuff, but of course it was, obvious. And he gets excited out there, and he demands. Um, he has high expectations. Well, doing tremendously a lot of drawbacks. Sometimes it's unnecessary, but if it's in front of a crowd, maybe there are other intentions within that teacher. But I did almost hurt my shoulder. I thought I had to get an MRI. Then I consulted with my main teacher, Manju, and he just says, don't do it again. So that's not what yoga is about. His father never taught it to be that way. His father always helped people that were ill or have some debilitating factors or pre existing conditions. And the teachings of yoga, regardless of whether it's Ashtanga, Iyengar, any authentic lineage, will tell you that even Vini Yoga, which is TKV Desikachar, the son of Chur Malai, he writes about that all the time. The practice of yoga is very individual, but yes, we have to put the effort. Yes, we have to not be exhausted in placing priority into the daily practice, but we also be very aware that this is our own body. Our body today isn't the same body tomorrow. And when you're able to do your best and maybe give it another 5 to 10%, David Williams used to tell us, never practice to 100%. You're going to hurt yourself. He says, put yourself at 75 and then see what you can do from there. And then if you make it to 85 or 90, shoot, praise yourself, encourage yourself. That was a great job. But if you come on the mat and you're already saying, I'm going to give it my gung ho 100%, he says you can almost bet yourself walking off your mat with some kind of form of injury,
Yep.
or then you hinder your practice tomorrow.
Yep. Yep.
So I do feel for you on that one. So I've changed my dynamics in, I have an advanced practice. So, and I practice 2 days of primary, 2 days of intermediate, and I practice a full advanced series. We're talking about what they call 3A and 3B or 4 and 5 and 6. Everybody's got this whole thing changed, but I don't, I don't modify as much. But when I do have an injury or I do feel like I'm exhausted or tired, I'm very wise enough over the years of 28 years to know, what are you doing this for? You're getting older. You're going to have sustainability, but if you're pushing yourself for ego, you got to figure it out. You're not practicing the 8 limbs, which is part of our practice,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so it's really, really quite important I wish that we have a balance. I do see a big division, you know, within the teachings
Yeah.
of the lineage. And I don't think it's sad, but I do feel that I think it needs to be, you know, addressed mindfully for those that find that this practice becomes very, gosh, like a fitness or an elite moment of circus Soleil and so forth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, because somebody like us or somebody like yourself, we're in this teaching, uh, we have an obligation, a role of a teacher. And when I see those things happening, I'm very mindful to be an observer, right? So you just sit back and, I've learned to teach myself within the scenery, you're the observer. Judge nothing today, but no mindfulness, right? So that's what I've become. Like I would have traveling students coming to me with such amazing, amazing, exceptional practice, but I see the injury right there, right before my eyes coming, and they're not my students directly, so I'm just very respectful to where they're learning from. But I do say something like, there's a lot of beautiful approach to yoga if you do it subtle,
Mm.
because
Yeah.
that's where the relaxation is. Yeah,
Yes.
that's where the
Yes.
healing begins.
It's
Yeah.
fascinating. I was
So,
practicing with Nancy at her place on Maui, and I was doing my up dog and coming up and taking my neck into full
mm,
extension and dropping it way, way, way back. And she kind of stopped me and said, "Your neck's gonna start
yeah.
to hurt." you know. And I remember at the time just thinking, "Oh, it was an interesting thing because
Hmm.
when someone can see something down the road that potentially could happen and they're offering advice,
Yeah.
at the same time, it planted a seed in my mind that, ooh, I wonder if I'm going to hurt my neck." And then when I did get a neck thing, I thought, man, she saw that. But then I couldn't
You
help
can
but,
hear the voice.
yeah, yeah, she's like, she was onto something. Like she
Yeah.
kept watching me and she gave me some direction. And
Yeah.
so, how do you feel as a teacher?
Yeah.
And I know this might be hard to answer, but how do you, because you probably are very aware of the power of suggestion as well. Like, you know, um,
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
say
that's
something
what
and it,
that's what I'm known for.
is,
Yeah.
is the
A
power of
lot of
suggestion.
people would tell me,
Yeah.
no, no, intuition and
Ah,
suggestion. Like
ah,
I think maybe my clinical background has
mm,
played also an asset to my role as a teacher. And I've worked a lot with post-op surgeries, cancer. Shoot, I mean, it goes on and on and on, from stroke to heart attack to Parkinson's and autoimmune disorders. But I think because of preventative medicine being a part of my life, and I myself as a cancer survivor, right, and used what I know from this practice as it was given to me and taught to me and learned, that when I finally got on the mat to be a teacher, that was one of the natural things that Manju used to say to me. He's like, "You have a gift. You can see things. You can see inside the body," he says. I was like, "Oh, thank you." He goes, and it goes beyond that when you're teaching, because you have to see them also as developmental stages. That
mm,
this is a temporary body today. This is gonna change.
right.
And then that was me in my 20s, right? Late 20s when he was telling me that. And when I survived my cancer, he's like, "Good job, keep on practicing." And he emphasized where the strength should be delivered. And he emphasized where, don't worry about the weakness. Don't worry about nitpicking things that are not going to be important. Right. So
Mm,
and then Nancy was the same way. When I met Nancy, gosh, there was so many times like, I don't understand. What is this about the hands going straight up instead of the hands going out? She wanted the hands going straight up. But I had just mentioned, fast forward 6 years ago, when my shoulders acted up on that drawback, saving grace. I'm not doing this constantly, but I'm doing this on my Surya Ace, right? And it helped. And knock on wood, knock on my shoulder, I have not yet and have not had any injuries from my practice besides the one that was being assisted on.
Yeah.
And everyone knows that because I haven't taken a day off, except on Saturdays or if I'm traveling. I'm always on the mat. Even when I'm traveling, people is like, "Oh my gosh, you're still practicing." I'm like, "Yeah, that's my first thing as I go to."
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but no, you're correct. It's to witness someone. Well, first of all, you embody the person you're teaching, and you empathize and you feel. I have a questionnaire every time I accept a student. Tell me where your past injuries are, because if not, I'll see them anyway. And I've also been trained in like Ayurveda, so I could tell those constitutions very, very well, and I could see an imbalance, especially if I'm seeing a student on a daily basis. Of course, you can see the imbalance happening right before your eyes. They don't even see the imbalance. And so I'll bring something up, sometimes they're like, "How did you know that?" I'm like, well, I'm related in ways with you, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Cool.
these are like the beautiful part of yoga that's so hidden,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
They're right there. It's in the heart. Yeah,
If you
yeah.
were to give advice to a new Ashtanga, or sorry, a new yoga practitioner who's
Mm.
starting to teach, what sort of advice would you give to, you gave great advice already. You said to like imagine you're in their body, and if you use empathy, then you could, come from a place of care. And therefore, obviously, it seems to me that because you've spent 28 years of consistent practice, you've seen like what happens, and you
Right.
kind of seen patterns. And so, someone that's new that doesn't have that 28 years, what type of advice would you give them if they're wanting to cultivate what you feel like you have been able to cultivate?
Well, one is definitely to always be present. If you're teaching, like truly, truly be present in the room with your observation. Just like you mentioned, going into this topic here, you said, what I have seen in 28 years. What I have seen in that 28 years, the observation in the room plays a really big role,
Yeah.
looking at people's body before you touch them. A lot of new teachers are so hungry to do these assists. It's insane.
Yeah.
I say that out loud because I've seen the injuries that it has caused. And they're assisting and adjusting sometimes for no particular reason. They haven't even analyzed the spine. I know we're not always talking about anatomy and physiology in the practice of yoga, but yes, the role of especially an Ashtanga teacher, Iyengar teacher, is to always look out for the best interest of any misalignments or imbalances so that we can prevent our students from walking out of the room feeling toiled or shoot in disharmony, right? So for me, what I have observed, because I do a lot of apprenticeship with Ashtanga aspiring teachers who have practiced, and I have a prerequisite for them. If they practice under 5 years, they have a lot of years to learn. They can teach, but they can be mindfully being overshadowed, like maybe a shadow or an assistant or an apprentice. Because I think to put somebody right away on the mat, or on the floor, to lead a class and or Mysore when you have various levels of people coming in there who may not know the balance of their own practice. It is very important to have a highly qualified teacher who's got some extensive experience or who has learned how to observe the room completely. And observing a room is a great way for new teachers or teachers maybe under 5 years to learn a lot. I did. For a long time, whenever I would go to Manju, he would only let me observe the room. It wasn't until like 7 or 8 years later he had me assist people. Same with Nancy. If you wanted to be an assistant with her, it would take a lot of trust for her to put the hands of her students into your hands. And people would say, like, but I'm wasting my time. No, we're not. This is valued, priceless time. What you see is where the practice of learning how to teach begins. And then, second, is your own practice is your own teacher. And a lot of the times, if you're not spending enough time on the mat as a teacher and you're finding your time being pulled to a lot of classes teachings, then that's something to reevaluate if you're quite ready to teach, and hold the hands of many lives in your hands. My students over in Maui or in San Francisco, if they always find me at my studio, either opening the door, I'm already there and doing my practice before, which means I'm on my mat at 4:30, which I love because that's been always how it is for me. But when I don't get on my mat, I always tell them, okay, guys, it's 8 o'clock and you guys are the last group, so I'm going to jump on my mat since I still have an assistant and maybe there's some parts you can assist me with because, maybe here and there I'm sensitive. But I always show up to my practice, and if I don't, I make time, not hypocritically, even if it's half series,
Yeah.
I get on my mat,
Nice. Nice.
because what we convey is what we practice. And if we start conveying, that we don't get on the mat, and how do we teach then? Because it gets very enticing before you know it to just teach forever.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we lose our own practice. Yeah, in that. I've seen that happen quite so many times. So,
Yeah. I believe it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
How do you
yeah,
balance? Well, you're in the medical world, so you're working in a hospital setting where you're seeing lots of, like you mentioned, various challenges that people are facing, and then that you work in the oncology department. And so,
right.
actually, maybe I'll start off first. Hopefully, you're comfortable answering this question. But you said you survived cancer. Did you need to undergo treatment
Yep.
to be able to do that?
Yeah, that's one of the greatest um, treasures I have with this practice. I opted only for surgery, and I was quite young. Both my grandparents have a genetic ovarian cancer, so definitely it's going to be genetic in one of the family members, right? And so I was still in high school when I started to feel some symptoms. And then, of course, when I moved to California for college, it really hit me, where my gynecology check, of course, evolved into an early stage cancer. And of course, during that time, it was encyclopedias, right? And you had this big computer you had to go to do research. There was no instant, wisdom and whatever it is, Wikipedia and all this stuff then. So I had to learn a lot about what this diagnosis was. Pre-early stage ovarian cancer was one. When I didn't do anything about it and I was still just reading and learning, I knew I had some time. I was never really a fearful person. I was brought up in a lot of faith. And so both of my parents instilled that in us, that you can't worry about things. You got to have faith and then figure it out after that, right? So I use that a lot in everything I do today. So anyhow, with that said, I told my surgeon and my gynecologist that I'm not going to be interested in any chemo or anything pharmacology wise, and but I am interested in the full hysterectomy. So of course, being so young, he's like, well, with that you can't have kids and da 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 da. I'm like, well, but I can buy me some time. So it was painful to buy me some time. I had 10 surgeries in the interim of all of that.
Wow.
And then I was able to, you know, find where I could, have my eggs still valuable to have two children biologically. And then I adopted one. So everything worked out. But within that interim of 10 years, my doctor, who's in Fullerton, California, still practices today, had told me, well, if you're not going to do Western allopathic medicine, you're going to have to do something. And there are not a lot of Eastern medicines out there, but I can introduce you to some. So first, he introduced me to what's called a compounding pharmacy, which they take your blood and they create your own kind of hormones and estrogen to help you. And then from there, I got introduced to an Ayurveda practitioner. And that Ayurveda practitioner led me to Ashtanga
Mm.
and knew Manju and knew Nancy and all that. So
Yeah.
my pathway was paved for me. So it was beautiful. I
Nice.
have been a cancer-free person, survivor for 28 years,
Wow.
so it's nice. And my
Yeah.
cancer hasn't returned, and my labs and everything looks amazing. The doctors can't figure it out, but my bone density, oh my gosh. Every time I tell them, here, watch my video, they're like, how's this? I was like, yeah, it's helpful. It
Yeah.
really does strengthen all your calcium and stuff. But yeah, so with that said, it helped me to become a better nurse and a better teacher in life when people come to this practice with pre-existing conditions, because I know what it feels to be weak and to be ill and to maybe even be hopeless, but I also know how to empower that and create resilience and courage and trust, which is what is our practice all about, right? We
Yes.
always say, I've come to say, what is it? Practice, practice, practice. And I used to say, all is coming. Oh, now I just say, practice, 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 because all is coming. You know?
Yeah.
So,
Like, get ready.
yeah,
Yeah.
99% perspiration and 1% whatever, period. Sweat your pain out. Yeah. But anyway, so yeah, so I just trust the practice and let people know that it's definitely a piece of work. So,
Have
and
you,
if you're willing to live, yeah, then you do it.
right? Have you ever had a student come to you and say, I have this potentially life-threatening diagnosis and I don't want to treat it Western style? And
Mhm.
have you seen any sort of outcome in either direction in terms of success, in terms of being able to live more days,
Yeah,
or it
the
didn't work
statistics
out?
are pretty,
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah, the statistics are pretty much equal for me right now because I've been in it for so long. I do have a half and half of a practitioners. Some already believe in naturopath and alternative medicine, and then some have to do both because it's life and death situation. And then at the end of that life and death situation, they have seen that quality of life is much more important.
yeah,
And then so then when they're pronounced that you have 90 days, only a supreme being would really know that that 90 days is fact, and truthful, right?
yeah, yeah,
They begin to take their practice and put it at the forefront of surrendering, trusting, and acceptance, which is all part of our niyamas, right? And yamas. So, and then I've seen them live past 90 days.
mm,
And go figure.
yeah,
Now I also have seen I've said goodbye to some, and I'm still saying hello to others. But you know what the beautiful thing is, the ones that have chose a really, really peaceful alternative route, I see that their pain and suffering is quite significantly different. They are at ease at their passing, and they seem like they did they did what they had to do, and they're content in letting go, and they're ready. And then I've seen some that are still getting a lot of things into their system, unhappy, angry, resentful, and unable to sometimes accept that it's time.
yeah,
And so I don't know. Like I said, I've seen the statistics to be quite equal. So for me, I often say to my family, shoot, if my cancer comes back, I am content. Just keep me on my mat. Let me do what I'm doing. Because this is the choice of self-realization for me, because I practice this kind of practice. I do believe in Christianity, but I also believe in the Buddhist approach, and I also believe in the yoga as a way of living approach. And if I survive that first diagnosis, shoot, what else could be really fearful than that? You know, the
yeah,
first time somebody tells you that is already at its,
yeah,
height. So,
yeah.
you know, and the rest is like, well, I've done it. So let's keep on trying.
I know, right?
There's a
Isn't it
lot of
amazing?
remedy out there.
Yeah. Once you
It
tackle a
is so amazing.
major hurdle and then the next
Yeah.
hurdle is even bigger, you're like, but
Yeah.
wait a minute, I tackled that other one.
Yeah.
Do you feel like
I
life
have this
is the
beautiful
way?
quote.
Yeah, please.
Well, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I have this beautiful quote about the hurdle. I do have three
Right.
cancer patients I'm working with right now. Their age ranges from 35 to 70 something, right? And they do practice very different yoga. There's no vinyasas, of course, but we do that's needed to circulate the blood and respiration, blood pressure, and all this to to stimulate. But one of the things that I remember always telling them is the struggles of every today will be your strengths for every tomorrow.
Mm,
So let the struggles be present because they're not going to go away. Never they will go away. They're never going to go. And a lot of times people think when they get on the mat or when they take a pill, both ways, whether it's pharmacology, allopathic, or Eastern medicine, the problem isn't going to go away. It could be preventative for some, it could reduce, reverse, or cure, or to remain stable. But it's the approach of your attitude, that's so important. So, and then when yoga empowers, breath empowers, meditation empowers that attitude, that's where I was saying earlier that statistics for me is like life changing. Shoot, which way do you want to stand then and go? You know,
Yeah.
because
Amazing.
I
Yeah.
want to live that way with a quality of life.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but yeah, but anyways, with
Do you,
that said, yeah.
do you feel that being involved, would you say that you're involved in palliative care with working in oncology, or, it sounds like you've obviously had interaction with lots of people,
Yeah,
had to make these really difficult decisions. And, um, do you,
yeah. I'm involved all the way through hospice.
yeah. Oh, wow.
Yes,
You went that far?
yeah.
Yeah. Amazing. Can you tell me a little bit about,
I'm in that now.
you're in that
Yes.
now? You're working as a hospice.
Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah. I have,
my mom passed a year ago, and when we involved
oh,
hospice,
sorry to
I
hear that.
thank you. I felt like everybody in hospice really were like angels. Like, you just can't
Mm,
we can't put a price tag on how incredible it is to have a group of people selflessly come in, just try to be really present to what's going on and not force what they think should be done
yeah.
in the moment. And watching
Yeah.
that happen was, I can't imagine a life without people like what you're doing, because to take care of the
Mm,
people that are passing is almost like really the way it seems that we actually show our care
yeah.
for life or our appreciation for life. So, wow, that's so cool that you're doing that. Can you tell me a little bit about
Yeah.
the different things you've come across and what you're learning?
Sure. Yeah, like I said, I've been in oncology healthcare systems as an advocate, a patient advocate, and a navigator, and that's part of my role. So I'm from whether it's pre-diagnosis to survivorship, and so that means there's hospice in there. One of the things that I miss, I wish we could do that more in Maui, but when I was in San Francisco, they would, you know, ask me to teach like a detachment class for nurses or healthcare providers, or understanding empathy classes and stuff, right? Especially for a navigator who's going to take the load off the doctor's hands and the nurse's hands, right? It's a nurse navigator, right? And understand the other role now of we're going home or they're going to give up on their treatment. This is a decision they make. And even though I work for you, I am an advocate for him, but I'm Australia, Switzerland, and I'm in the middle. But my role, as even though if I'm hired in this facility, is to look after the best interests of the patient and their family and their caregivers, the decision that they want to make. And then if they're uncertain, unsure, then that's where I give them the resources and the options to hopefully make a sound decision. Anyhow, with that, um, one who teaches yoga has empowered my understanding and detachment that, the outcome is already as is, but the way we journey to the outcome is quite important. And you mentioned that to become that type of role in hospice or in palliative care, one has to understand the science of life, that there is birth, death, and suffering. There's birth, pain, and suffering, and death. They all will evolve, whether how healthy we take care of ourselves. But again, it goes back to the mindset of preparing yourself for the fear of the unknown. When a family member, a yoga student, it doesn't matter whether it's no disease or yes disease. If one is prepared well in this journey of life and understands the cycle of life, like the deepest part of philosophy in yoga, right? It talks about all of the kleshas and the journey of how we have to travel, all of these in Yoga Sutras with Patanjali's texts. It makes this very easy to adapt and integrate when we say yoga is beyond the mat, it goes off the mat into your life and into the real world. So the approach is the same. And
Mm,
that's that is like one of the most valuable things that we can do for our yoga students when, they come into us and they have something going on in their lives, is to teach the practice to be applied into that, because that's the greater asana right there, is when you're holding somebody's hand, when you're holding your mom's hand, your body language, your heart, your face, you know, it's the
Yeah.
most beautiful thing as a teacher as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or your friend who calls you and is in distress. Your body language, your posture is right there on the other end of that telephone call. That is the third series, the fourth series, the advanced series, the
Yes.
rishis, you know.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the times we don't talk about that when we're teaching, even the simplest forward fold. I see people like trying their hardest to do the forward fold. And sometimes I even look at them like, how important is that to you? Like you're shaking, you know.
Yeah.
I was like, breathe. The breath is more important than the muscle toning right now. We'll work about your muscle toning after. Can't do it without the breath. The breath is going to be what's going to cost you to have the muscle toning one day. Yeah, it's like, gosh,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
you know,
That's
yeah.
amazing.
With that said, but
I love hearing your thoughts on
yeah,
that.
there's so much to share.
I well, I really
Yeah.
appreciate you sharing what you did. I saw a picture of you on the beach. It looked like you were down like in Paia or somewhere in that area, and Sprecklesville or something. The sand was really
Yeah.
gold color, and you had a nice little
Oh, I know.
suntan glow going, and you just kind of made a post, a really nice post,
Yeah.
really well written post. You're a good writer. You wrote about the importance
Thank
of
you.
vitamin D and how certain sunscreens, block our ability to absorb vitamin D. And so I'm curious of,
Right.
and obviously, like where we live here in Florida too, people are always getting screened for skin cancer, and really just like, wow, protect your skin, protect your
Yep.
skin, protect your skin. So how do you balance all that? Because I love sunbaking, but
Well,
then people look at me and say, "Whoa, you're gonna get cancer," and you're like, "Oh, dude, I don't know." So what do you think about that? 'Cause we see that in a lot of we see that in a lot of
well,
different things, right? Like where like you're just enjoying life, and it's like, yeah, but
I
if you
know.
enjoy life, you're gonna probably
We're
die
like,
because you enjoy it. So
I know.
yeah,
Yeah, we keep throwing all these things to fear people without the right information. You know what I mean? That's called fear of the unknown. That's part of the psychology pyramid, of growing up in developmental stages. Anyways, yes, we do need to protect yourself from, yes, skin cancer, but also you need to know where your genetics are too, and also the time that you go out to the sun, how much you go out to the sun, and then what else are you doing that, when you're out in pure sunlight. A lot of people, the moment the sun isn't at its mere, supreme factor of burning you, and people are just lathering so much skin protection right away, wait to lather that, until you absorb some of the really pure vitamin D. There's a big problem with vitamin D deficiencies in many states, that don't get the weather that you do in Florida, Hawaii, or California on most months. And vitamin D deficiencies cause other cancers than skin cancers, such as breast cancer and bone cancer, and it goes on and on and on, right? It doesn't formulate your blood to circulate well or form well. It causes some part of autoimmune as well. So, it all depends on how are you out there in the sun as well. You're not there to stay for a whole full hour and a half if you're not protected for sure. But if you're just hitting the beach, let's say it's between what, 10 and noon, or maybe in the afternoon, but it's just been like 20 minutes. I don't, I personally know that you're not going to get skin cancer that fast, but just hold off on putting the sunscreen for a while. And then after your nice 10-20 minute walk, of course, lather it and see where you can go from there.
yeah, good advice.
Vitamin D is very, very, very important for our whole internal being. Our organs thrive it, our blood system thrive it, our fluids and our brain thrives it. We lack the nutrients already if we're not eating well or if we're not getting the sustenance that we need. I mean, there's so much things out there that is processed, and those skin blocks, they're so thick, and we need our skin to have the tone. And the tone, everybody always says, like, I can't believe you're like 52. I was like, well, I'm going to give it to the sunlight. you know, I was like, I'm not going to go get a Botox or a facelift and all that stuff. Everyone to each his own, that's their choices. But if I could still sit, I have no problems with my skin. And I think part of the toning, elasticity, and the vibrancy and all that has to do with taking good care of yourself.
Yeah.
And one of the things to take good care of yourself is to make sure you have vitamin D,
Mm,
pure vitamin D, just like pure vitamin C. These vitamins can be popped into the mouth with pills, but that's not enough. So I'm, into natural things. So I really like to teach on that because I think it plays a factor in preventative medicine in the future for many generations today. And a lot of people are working indoors, especially now that they're remote working. They don't even want to step away. It's like,
mm,
oh, it's too hot.
mm.
Oh, it's too sunny. Oh, it's too cold. Well, when is it the right time? Yeah,
Right. Good point.
you
Good
know.
point.
Yeah.
Have you,
So it's really important.
just to familiarize the listener and or viewer, there's a place if you drive from where you are in Haiku along the road to Hana, a really amazing drive. And then there's Seven Sacred Pools, which is a incredible
Yeah.
waterfall. Have you had
Yes.
any magical experiences at those waterfalls?
The energy.
Yeah.
Oh,
Can
yeah.
you talk a little bit
My
about?
favorite is bamboo forest is
Isn't that
mine.
amazing?
Every time I go to that place, I feel like
Mm,
I'm just disconnected with the world. Not
yeah.
in an irresponsible way where like, you don't have obligations, responsibility. People always try to take that out of context. No, we need to disconnect to reconnect ourselves because we're just cluttered. We're just so busy. And even, sometimes I'm dialoguing with people. I'm like, oh my gosh, where's your period or your punctuation mark? You need to go to bamboo forest, like turn off. You're just like all over the place. But anyways, going back to that, I often go there to read and just bring myself there to get away. I don't even invite people to go with me when I go there. It's just like a place that I know I could feel all of, I don't know if it is the chlorophyll, the energy, just everything seems to just unweigh you and then radiate you. It's like, oh my gosh.
Oh,
And I get lost there.
yeah.
Time doesn't exist there,
It's so
and it's the one place that I can connect to the teachings where I forgot to mention to you, one of my teachers is Deepak Chopra and Dr. Vasant Lad in Ayurveda. And they used to tell me, forget about time. Don't look at time. It's like, what if my cancer comes back? They would say, don't look at things like that. It's expansion. Just let it be. Well, every time I'm at Bamboo Forest, I feel like I'm getting healed by the day, and I'm sitting there. Like I just added another 1 year, 2 years, 3 years to my life. Yeah. So the energy there is so mana. That word mana?
mhm.
It's just like, just very nourishing. It's like the best nutrient you could feed yourself. You're
Yeah.
surrounded by all the greens, undisturbed nature,
And the sound when
you
it's
know,
windy,
the
which is
the rocks.
oh,
Oh,
yeah, the sound of the bamboo
so beautiful.
breaking.
The
I
bamboo's
know,
knocking.
yeah.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
I just stay there.
I know. It's
Yeah.
so beautiful. I had
And
such
I
an
often,
incredible,
I don't
yeah.
know how many times I've been there, and every time I walk, I'm still going, oh, oh, my
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
visual
Yeah.
never gets old. Yeah.
I
But
took
anyways,
when my
yeah, there's
son
just Maui.
when my son was
Yeah.
2, I was like, I took my wife and we went, or I took them there, and I was like, we're climbing to the top. So I had one of those backpacks you put your kid in on your back. And my son is like really good natured, but for some reason, he just screamed at the top of his lungs the whole way up. And my wife was like, come on, let's just go back. Like, this is not fun. Nothing about this is fun. And I'm like, we have to go to the waterfall at the end. And like, it was just one of those moments where it just didn't play out the way I had hoped in my mind ahead of time, but it's still,
Yeah.
it still was an incredible experience. But I'll never forget just like thinking, like, we're in this really beautiful, peaceful place. Why are you screaming your head off? But I guess that's life
Well, it was a good
sometimes. Yeah.
preparation for you.
Yeah, right.
The unexpected moment. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Wow. Well, this is so wonderful.
Well, I
So
know.
I love that you do this.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I can't wait to visit you in Miami. Well, you're not in Miami, you're on the other side, right?
No, we're on the same side.
Which part of Florida?
We're in a
Oh,
town called
you're okay.
yeah, we're in a town called Juno Beach, which is about an hour and 15
Okay.
minutes drive north of Miami. So we're on the east coast of Florida, a little bit north of
Okay.
Palm Beach. Yeah. I'd
Good.
love to have you here. If
Yeah.
I'd love to host you here for a
Yeah.
workshop or for a visit.
That would be
Uh,
wonderful.
I know it's a lot of work to pull it up. We had
I have quite a
delays.
bit of students.
You have a lot of students
Yeah.
over here in Florida?
That live there in Florida.
Ooh.
Yes.
Ooh.
And they fly to Maui. So I was like,
I'd
yeah,
believe
they
it.
go the other way. And my
Yes.
sister loves Florida. She says it's beautiful. She's a
Well,
dolphin fan.
oh,
So, yeah.
yeah, yeah. We have
But
someone who
yeah,
comes in and she's
we
like,
could talk
yeah.
about that. I would
Okay, cool.
love
Okay,
to do
cool.
that. Yes.
Thank you,
That would
Christina.
be
It's really
so
sweet of
cool.
you. Well, I'm just what time is it there for you? What time is it?
Well, we're about an hour away.
Yeah.
So I'm at 123. So I'm
In the
traveling right
afternoon.
now. I'm in Texas now.
Oh,
So
cool.
yes.
Yeah. All right. I thought
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm not too far from you.
got it, got it.
Yeah. So no,
Amazing.
it's perfect time. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad
Yeah.
it worked out
Well,
time-wise.
thank you
I
so
really
much.
appreciate your generosity in coming and speaking with me. And is there any tidbit of information, wisdom, knowledge, final closing mantra, something that you would like to help us close our conversation
Yes,
with today?
definitely. One of my favorite mantras, of course, is the peace mantra. And, you know, the Sahana Vavatu, Sahana Bunaktu, Sahavidyam Karavavahi, Tejasvina Vahitamasama. I'm not sure if you chant that, but I often chant that every day, at least twice a day, sometime between the morning and the afternoon. And I think it's just because it's a good place to remind us every day that, that I am not in the world, but the world is in me. And so that everything that we do from the moment we rise reflects what we're going to create and make a difference with. And so, with that, our practice is really all that. It teaches us how to be kind, generous, giving, understanding, also teaches us how to have structure and discipline and effort. And so that, we never get sluggish. And so that we can always thrive and have vitality, or we have a purpose, to find joy every day when we get on the mat or off the mat into everything that we do in our daily lives, whether we're parents, relationships, coworkers, or teachers, practitioners, neighbors, acquaintance. It's all the same. We're here to serve human the same way with love. So
Yeah.
yeah, but
Yeah.
peace is always important. So much good things in our practice. So yeah, well, thank you.
Thank you. I love
It's
that
been a
you just said,
pleasure.
I'm not in the world, but the world is in me. That is good.
Mm.
I like that.
Yeah, that's I've learned to live like that when I was given a second chance to beat cancer. It's like, you know what, I'm in the world and I gotta make a difference. So if I made my difference to myself, what good is that? There's a lot of people struggling that don't know this. So, and the same thing with yoga. Hey, I know that this practice works. I do want to be a teacher when I first started, but I'm not ready. But I'm going to figure out how to teach when I'm ready because the world needs me and I need the world, right? So it's not just one way.
Yeah.
It's two constantly like an infinity sign,
Okay.
just going on
Yeah.
and on and on. So, but yeah. But anyways, I can't wait to meet you in
Thank
person
you.
and
Thanks so
your
much.
team there.
I
So,
appreciate it.
but I know it will work out one day.
All right.
So
I
to get
agree.
to Florida, I'm excited.
Well, I've
So we
thoroughly
say
enjoyed
mahalo,
mahalo.
nuliloa.
Thank you so much. I thoroughly
Mahalo,
enjoyed this.
namaste.
Namaste.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.